Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're going to dive into a text that a lot of people just dismiss as a simple, classic tale. But, upon closer inspection, it reveals itself to be something much more sinister and honestly, fascinating. What we actually have here is a highly sophisticated masterclass in social engineering, psychological manipulation, and the absolutely ruthless art of the con. We're going to break down The Fox and the Crow not as some quaint little bedtime fable, but as the literal anatomy of a heist. We're going to look at exactly how a skilled manipulator completely separates a target from their most prized asset. Okay, let's dive into this. I want you to stop for a second and ask yourself a very real, kind of uncomfortable question. Have you ever been defeated by a compliment? Seriously, it's a profound human vulnerability. We lock our doors, we put passwords on our bank accounts, but the second someone says exactly what we want to hear about ourselves, boom, our defenses completely drop. This explainer is going to be a deep dive, psychological deconstruction of exactly how that specific vulnerability gets exploited. All right, let's get into phase one, the target and the prize. To really understand how this heist is pulled off, we first have to look at the initial casing of the joint, right out there in our forest setting. Let's evaluate the power dynamic for a second. On one side, you have the fox. He's grounded, he's hungry, and he's at a massive physical disadvantage. On the other side, you've got the elevated crow. She holds absolutely all the cards, and more importantly, the ultimate prize, a fine piece of cheese securely held in her beak. Yet, despite being at this massive physical disadvantage, think about the fox's internal monologue here. He spots the cheese and immediately concludes, I would like to have a bite of that cheese. It will be easy to get. Wow. I mean, that is a chilling level of confidence, isn't it? He instantly assesses the situation, zeroes in on the structural weakness of his target, and decides that executing this heist won't just be possible, it's going to be easy. Which brings us to phase two, the weapon of flattery. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the precise step-by-step escalation of his psychological attack. Since the fox can't just use physical force to jump up and reach that branch, he has to deploy carefully crafted linguistic weapons. He starts by establishing a baseline of grand praise, calling her a noble and gracious bird. Then he zooms in, targeting specific physical traits like her glossy feathers and bright eye. Finally, he goes for the jugular, attacking the ego's absolute deepest desire for exceptionalism, claiming her voice must surprise all the other birds. He is meticulously building an inflated alternate reality for her to just step right into. And then, right on cue, comes the trap, the ultimate bait. He says, "It would please my ear to hear you sing a little melody." This is just brilliant. Notice how he doesn't demand a single thing. He frames his entire attack as a humble request from a lowly admirer. He targets the crow's newly inflated ego by asking for a performance, completely masking a devastating trap as an innocent, flattering favor. If we distill the narrative logic of this whole text, we're looking at a coldly calculated three-step operation. Step 1, identify the prized asset. Step 2, flatter the mark's ego and appearance to completely bypass their logical defenses. Step 3, secure the dropped asset the very second the mark opens their mouth to indulge in that flattery. It is remarkably simple, incredibly efficient, and just utterly ruthless. Moving on to phase 3, the inevitable fall. This brings us right to the suspenseful climax. The bait is dangling right in front of her, and we get to witness the exact moment her psychological blind spot takes over. Just look at the tragic contrast here. The fox painted this beautiful expectation of a noble bird singing a sweet little melody. But let's be honest with ourselves. Crows aren't exactly known for their angelic voices, right? The reality is much harsher. Intoxicated by all that flattery, she opens her beak to abruptly squawk and sing. Those honeyed words completely distorted her reality, leading to a truly catastrophic decision. Down fell the cheese. In one single abrupt moment, the entire illusion is just broken. The physical asset, which was completely 100% secure just seconds ago, drops instantly into the waiting mouth of the fox below. The aftermath of this is immediate, and it is devastating. The crow squawks, "Oh no, you've stole my dinner." This is that sudden, crushing realization that she has been completely played. The grand illusion of her noble grace and her beautiful voice vanishes in a split second, replaced by the stark, embarrassing reality of her own gullibility and, well, her suddenly empty beak. Her inflated ego bursts the exact second the asset is lost. And that leads us into phase 4, a bitter lesson learned. The heist is successful.
But the fox isn't quite finished yet. He completes the transaction with a really twisted form of payment, and this brilliantly illustrates the cold, transactional nature of a true manipulator. He explicitly tells her, "That was all I wanted," openly admitting to the con right to her face. Then, as a mocking exchange for her stolen cheese, he offers her unsolicited advice. The very person who just robbed her blind is now positioning himself as her wise teacher.
The fox explicitly tells her, "Do not trust flatterers." Based directly on the text's explicit warning, we can define a flatterer not just as someone who says nice things to you, but as a genuinely hostile actor. A flatterer is someone who weaponizes complimentary talks and false praise, specifically to manipulate others, to bypass their internal security systems, and to steal their cheese, whatever that valuable asset might be in your life. So the crucial point is this explicit moral, delivered right at the end of the text: beware of flattery. It's not just a polite little suggestion. It is a vital, everyday defensive strategy. The text uses this whole dynamic to show us that an unchecked ego and a massive appetite for false praise will always cost you what you value most. Flattery is rarely free, folks. It almost always comes with a hidden and very heavy price tag.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a final thought so you can actually apply this age-old lesson to your modern day-to-day life. Look, we all have our own metaphorical pieces of cheese, right? It's our time, our money, our secrets, our trust. And there are always going to be those operating on the ground beneath us, calculating just how easy it will be to get them. So I want you to take a really hard look at your interactions and ask yourself, who are the foxes in your own life? Are you holding securely onto your cheese, or are you getting ready to sing? Keep your eyes open and never, ever let a compliment be your downfall.